Any questions? Yep. A few.
What's the status of the Hudson River watershed? Have they stopped drilling in that area as well?
Yeah.
To answer your question about New York State,
Yeah.
New York State has a moratorium on drilling in the entire state.
For the entire state right now. Okay. Yeah, I know the Hudson River, that area doesn't, well, there is some Marcellus up in the Catskills, so I guess that is potential there. Yep.
It just seems to me so much effort has to be put in to get this stuff out.
Right.
We don't know the catastrophes. Has anybody thought that the new governor should be held responsible and become for it? If there's a disaster like this, he should be considered crimes against humanity and put in jail if they happen.
There's already been disasters.
No.
Yeah, well, and they're supposed to have disaster plans in place, but I'm not sure that they're well written. I haven't seen them to know what the disaster plans are. But yeah, I mean, that's a concern. There's concerns about fire. There's concerns about, you know, leakage of contaminants. There are a lot of different concerns out there. Frank?
I know in 2006 we had a 100-year flood event. In 1993 we had a really severe flood event. And just thinking about the retention pools, it seems like they're vastly under-equipped to
deal with that.
A disaster like that.
Right, yeah. And we've seen that with hurricanes, and hurricanes do hit our state. Floyd was a good example, where you can have a lot of flooding that could affect the pools as well, right?
And on a Tom Corbett topic, I've heard that his first plan for his governorship is to reopen state lands for drilling, which has been done very, as you said, you know, the whole culture of waiting for regulations has made a sloppy attitude among the drillers to an extent. It's been far worse in the state forests where there's no roads to begin with. So I just think that's it.
Okay, good. Yep.
Do you think that there's other parts of the world where if you extract it, it's much safer and it comes out more easily?
Well, this, yeah. Well, this is definitely a new technology. Of course, it's much easier to extract in the Middle East because they use the traditional drilling processes. The key is that to get it in this country, right now we've pretty much used up all of those types of drilling options, and so now we're left with this new technology, which was really not even considered, and that's why we don't have regulation in place, is because no one considered it to be even an option 5 years ago, but now that the price has gone up, the technology has improved, now it's actually economical for them to do that.
Well, just a quick response about why Marcellus is being developed. One of the big reasons is its proximity to the market where the gas is needed. It's New England is the biggest market for natural gas in the country, so the gas in New York and Pennsylvania is very close to where it's being used, so it's easier to transport there. My questions, really, I'm shocked that Carol's not here for this presentation.
She's been pretty busy.
Yeah,
yeah.
And you probably don't know this yet, but there are two questions. One concerns what happens to the roads, pipelines, and pads once the well is played out?
Right.
And number two, do you know why the DRBC, why they decided to issue the regulations now rather than waiting?
Okay, so the first question is what happens to the pads and the roads and so forth once they're done. And they're supposed to have a recovery plan. A lot of them haven't really submitted those yet because they don't have to. They're looking at, you know, down the road. They're looking 20 years down that they, you know, some of the roads, a lot of the municipalities have asked for roads to be repaired after the initial fracking is done. And apparently some of the companies have agreed to repair roads in townships and things where they're being affected. But there has to be a recovery plan at some point put in place. I don't know that any have actually been out there. I haven't seen any yet, but I wasn't really looking for that. The second part of your question was why did the DRBC come out today? I know just talking from Carol last month, she said they're getting a lot of pressure to do something. But I also know that like the New York State governor was against them putting something out at this point. I think the New Jersey governor was against them putting something out right now. So I think, but they're being put under a lot of pressure to get something out there because there, you know, again, there's this balancing act that you have to do between environmental impacts and, you know, landowners who feel that they're somehow missing out and they're not being given their fair rights in this situation. Yeah.
I'm a high school teacher, and we're looking at this in my class. And the question that my kids have asked, that and maybe a very simple question, is if they're doing this horizontal drilling, can you drill under somebody else's land?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. And that's a big issue, right?
And the kids were outraged by the possibility.
Right. Right.
It depends on that depends on the state, because like each state has different regulations, and I was gonna touch that point actually, because we're talking about lining or not lining. A lot of these retention ponds, like it depends on the state. They have like, you know, they make the drillers like line the ponds. Like it used to, in Colorado, they didn't used to do it. Then they are made to do that right now. I know that some of the new people running for governor are trying to be nice to the drillers, and they want to take that back out, like the whole like lining of ponds, of retention ponds. And it's not only that. Like I mean, like one of your slide about the retention ponds, another big issue that people are failing to see a lot is like the amount of a lot of the VOCs that are like that come back with the frack water. A lot of that is being, I mean, a lot of these retention ponds also are being aerated, so like it increases the amount of like volatilization of, of the VOCs. So it's like kind of sources that I mean, federal
that's not regulated.
It's not the federal government cannot regulate it.
Right.
And it depends a lot on you know on how working together with the state regulators. So
Could it potentially drilling under someone's land, depending how large the structure is, could it potentially damage the structural foundation of a building?
Okay, yeah, so that's another issue that they're concerned about with subsidence. So if you take out all this material, then there's potential for subsidence. You see that with too much groundwater withdrawal, where the ground can, and you can have your foundations crack, you can have all sorts of issues. I think that they are thinking that by putting all of the sand down in there, that's going to prevent that, and I don't know that that's actually been proved out. So there is potential for subsidence, for problems with buildings collapsing or foundations cracking, that kind of thing, yeah.
So this isn't a question so much as a comment, but a lot of the attention for the fracking has been in the Delaware River watershed, which, you know, is really important. There's a lot of people there. And I guess this is a result of SRVC not having as much power as DRVC, but all the fracking that's happening in central Pennsylvania in SRVC's territory, all that water is eventually going to end up in the Chesapeake.
Yep.
The Chesapeake is already like very environmentally degraded. There's a presidential executive order saying that that water needs to be cleaned up. You know, all Pennsylvania, New York, Maryland, Virginia, they all had to submit watershed implementation plans, how they're going to protect it. No one's really looking at how fracking
is going to affect the
Right now, everyone's mostly focusing on either the Delaware and mostly on drinking water, and not so much, you know, where's that water going eventually? It's going to the Chesapeake Bay. It's going to the Delaware Bay.
there is a lot of actually, like it's not completely, like there is attention to West Virginia, to Western Pennsylvania. There is a lot of attention. The problem is that there is a due process that has to happen, and a lot of the times, you know, like, you know, you have to do the science first.
Right.
And even though there is a lot of science, you know, there is a due process with everything that goes on in the government. So it's not like, even if it looks imminent or anything like that, you have to prove it without any.
Well, the thing I was surprised about, I guess, was Pennsylvania just at the end of November, they put out their TMDL plan for the Chesapeake Bay, and they basically don't say much about fracking in the bay. They basically say it's covered by the Oil and Gas Act.
Which is a huge,
They basically say, well, they have to get a permit, so it's okay.
It's important to note, I think that the TMDLs for the Chesapeake Bay are largely oriented towards nitrogen and phosphorus.
Yeah.
Yes, they
Where the development of gas in the Western River Basin does not influence the bioactivity in the phosphorus. So it's a really totally separate consideration.
But even in that, I mean, there's a lot of NOx emissions from the compressor stations, huge engines that are like 2,000 horsepower or more each along the pipelines to push this gas to the market or to the processing plants. And for the TMDLs for Chesapeake Bay, they've even considered the NOx deposition from air onto the water body itself. So there is there are wheels moving in government.
Yeah, some real issues.
I was gonna say also to clear up, like there are other concerns. You know, like you have like the increase in the amount of like semi trucks and the amount of transportation.
Right.
In the roads. It's not only damage to the roads. It's actually like the mere increase. It's astonishing the amount of increase in transportation. Like towns that have maybe like 1,000 people having like
they have traffic jams and
trucks going through their
yeah.
town. So you know, these are mobile sources of pollution. These are concerns like actually to air for being even considering, you know, the possibility of like even non-attainment or attainment in rural areas. You know, that's kind of preposterous, but it can happen. The other thing is like the treated water, like you know, yeah, municipalities are accepting it, but one main concern that is out there is that actually this what they are being treated for, the wastewater treatment plants don't have the engineering capability.
Right, exactly. That's the big concern.
Like the actual engineering capacity to take all this water.
Right.
Second of all, this is water polluted with stuff that doesn't come out from the wastewater
right.
treatment plant. Like, you know, the brine is the big problem actually,
yeah.
and that's more than anything else is the amount, the high TDS, you know, levels. And this issue is, you know, it's not gonna be solved by the conventional treatment.
Right,
so
and that's a real
huge
huge concern.
In other states, they make the drillers. In Texas, it's like that. The drillers have to like clean the water.
Right.
It's a crystallization. It's a more advanced process to like remove that high levels of salt.
Even that has air pollution.
Exactly. Okay, one more over here, and then we'll break up. Okay, well, two more over here. Yep.
I was wondering if there was any specific focus on the uranium that occurs naturally in Marcellus shale and in shale formations in general, and whether that will have an effect on the holding ponds, the way
right.
they're managed, or the fracking fluid in general.
Right, and that's a big concern that's just come out, that there's actually uranium in this rock, and what are the and other types of radioactive materials, and what is the? It's ironic that the way that they find the shale in the first place is using radio logs. So
it used to be, it was supposed to be like in the 1930s and 40s, I think. It was supposed to be like a source for getting uranium,
right,
actually.
Right.
And right now it's called T-norms. I think that's the term for the radioactive, you know, the non-natural occurring like radioactive materials.
Right.
And it is a concern.
Yeah, and so and that is a concern, is that, you know, that is getting into the fracking fluids, which are going into the holding basins, which then, yeah, I mean, the rock has it normally, but you don't normally, it's 6,000 to 8,000 feet down, so you don't normally come in contact with it, so that is a big concern. I don't know that they've really come around to dealing with that yet. But that's something that the wastewater treatment plant cannot remove. So, do you have another question, or are you good? Okay, one more. Yeah.
I think it's important to note, you know, put certain things in perspective. The ozone pollution in the Philadelphia area and New York State and Boston is in large part caused by burning coal in western Pennsylvania and Ohio. The same areas of western Pennsylvania where they mine coal and burn coal for power have Marcellus shale gas. And as it's becoming less and less, gas is more and more cost competitive than coal, there will be environmental goods generated by burning natural gas as a substitute for burning coal. So that's, you know, one of the things to put in perspective. Another thing to put in perspective, if we look at the Pennsylvania forest where the Marcellus shale is right now, or Marcellus is starting to be tapped, we were there 100 years ago, there wouldn't be all these forests and trees, because at that time the forests had been cleared. But yet the trees have recovered in an amazing way. Nature has this amazing ability to restore itself. So as we cut paths through the woods for roads and for pipelines, nature is amazingly strong and has an amazing ability to come back. Another thing is the drilling technology really isn't that new. Fracking has been going on, not with horizontal wells, but fracking has been going on in vertical wells for about 50 years.
Yeah.
And horizontal well drilling is something that is really the thing that really changed the whole technology, so that you can tap, instead of maybe 250 feet of Marcellus shale, you can tap 5,000 feet, and then radiate at one wellhead. You can drill 6 or 8 wells. Again, it's a lot less disturbance, and you can draw a lot of gas. Another thing is in terms of jobs, yes, in the beginning, right now, there aren't that many jobs, the high-tech jobs, in drilling and development for Pennsylvanians, because particularly in eastern Pennsylvania, because no one has drilled wells in eastern Pennsylvania. But the state colleges and the junior colleges are having training programs. So within a few years, there will be Pennsylvanians getting jobs doing this work. And it's not, at one wellhead, 6 or 8 wells is about a year and a half's worth of work. And the next wellhead may be 2 miles away. So there will be jobs for Pennsylvanians. There's absolutely no doubt about that. And it's really a game changer to the economy of Pennsylvania and really to the United States in terms of energy.
Would you mind, I'm sorry, but other people have sort of mentioned their affiliations. Do you have a particular
Sure.
affiliation?
I'm an environmental consultant. I'm actually a graduate of the University of Pennsylvania as a major in geology. There was still a department of geology before I became working in environmental studies. And I've been working in environmental consulting. I've actually used fracking for remediation of TCE contaminated groundwater at an industrial site, industrial sites in New Jersey. So fracking is what I think
many uses.
a beneficial use. And my firm I work for does engineering work and environmental work associated with primarily now with the pipeline portion of the work. And when we do that environment, before they can put in one of these compressor stations or a pipeline, one has to walk the entire, if the compressor station is identify where the wetlands are, where the sensitive water resources are, to develop that site to have minimal impact. And if there are impacts, and sometimes there are impacts to wetlands and so forth by design, by necessity, then there are mitigation requirements. The same thing goes for pipelines. And the same thing will be required for drill sites. And that's why the question came, why did the DRVC come out now with this program? Well, they've come out with a program that, at least in their mind, they think will protect the resources, protect the water and the other natural resources, and at the same time allow for development.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.